I'm really grateful for that. When I'm riding on the planes, I never put all my weight on, but I'm grateful. And I didn't realize, I guess sometimes you I was paying attention to getting coordinated with Ronald Coleman on the trip and the time we was going to be there and the lessons that we're going to be teaching. And I didn't realize that I had so many people concerned about me going. I made that comment yesterday, and they said, "Well, you didn't pay attention, did you?" But we do appreciate the concern. But it was I'm going to be showing you some pictures here that Foy fixed up for me. All I'm supposed to do is roll this thing here on the control. But I want to begin by reading Psalms 1. The Psalms is a beautiful book, some tremendous thoughts in it. But I want to begin with the first Psalm this morning. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of waters, that bring forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. The ungodly are not so. They are like the chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the seat of the scornful. But the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. Now, I wanted to begin with that because that's something that we need to think about, of course, all of our lives and everywhere we are. But I've got several pictures, and I was working on them, and I took pictures with my camera, Miss Carolyn, and then Alex, Jane's son, was there. He was there the entire time that we were there this trip, and he sent me pictures. I don't know how many there were that he had taken on his phone. Some I didn't even know about. I looked through them and deleted some of them, but I'm going to be showing some that he took and some that, of course, that I took during the trip. But let me start by getting, let's see, I don't want to move it too fast. I'll get ready in just a minute. But this was taken, and this is a picture taken by Alex. This was as they were coming in on Sunday morning. One of the Sunday mornings we were there. There's several of the individuals I want to mention as we, and looking at two ladies here that have been very active in the church for many years, but they have got up past middle age, Tony, and they're moving a lot slower, but they're still at church, and most of them come to the Saturday night. We started the school, of course, having classes Monday through Friday. So instead of having a Wednesday night Bible study like we do here, they started having on Saturday afternoon Bible study. And of course we are always, and it's not a Bible study now. Sam, they expect us to answer their questions. And we appreciate, I do appreciate the questions they have, because it's an indication that they are doing some serious study and asking questions about, for instance, one question that Peter asked this trip was the difference between the soul and spirit. We worked on that a while. But here, this is Ronald. Now, Ronald's just 82, but he's still able to get around and doing well. That's Andrew that's translating for him. That's Peter's son. Andrew was one of the early Christians in the church a number of years ago. I made a comment. He sort of looked at me, Brother Barry. It's 3 or 4 years ago. I was there, and he asked me to have lunch with him. So we went to a restaurant, was having lunch, and he told me, he says, "You don't look much older than you did when you started coming." So I told that to him, and he looked at, and they told me, well, he didn't have his glasses on then. But now this is the restaurant. They always each Sunday after services they have us come to the restaurant to eat. This is a Ukrainian restaurant, and you can see from the background, if you had the opportunity to see the whole thing, it's a real old pictures and things that they've used there. Peter is one with the glasses on. He's been the preacher there at the Central Church for over 20 years now. While I'm at it, let me talk about Valentine. He is the one that's sitting across next to me. Valentine, of course, I've told you before, he came from Donetsk in 2014 when Russia invaded Donetsk. They took the church building, and of course we had the Bear Valley School and the Sunset School of Preaching there both. They took both of their buildings. The Bear Valley, they went in on, they knew they were having a school there, and they knew that they met on Sunday morning for worship. They went in on Sunday morning when they'd come in to worship and told them to leave. We're taking this building. But back to Valentine, he was preaching for a congregation. I didn't get the picture. He had a picture that on his phone. He's showing us. He was preaching for a congregation of over 400 in Donetsk, and the church was really doing well there. I mentioned Bear Valley. There was a publication, Eastern European publications, that they brought many thousands of Bibles and books to Kremenchuk that was given to people. So that was the Russian translation of the Bible. But he felt so bad. He came after they invaded, and he left, and he of course we was talking to him about it a couple of years ago. He was really concerned. He said that they were killing some of them. In fact, he told us that of the men of the congregation where he was preaching, there was more than 100 that had been killed. Now we're talking about since 2014. We were in our class this morning talking about Christians being persecuted. Communism, godlessness, hates Christianity or the Jews either. So, but I felt so bad for Valentine that he's had a rough time with having to leave. But had he not left, he would probably would have been killed because they knew he was the pulpit minister there. That's an old car. I just thought I'd show you that one. Foy's got one just about that old. His is a Jeep. And we were walking the street here, and Alex is one took this picture. This man, this is his wife. They're not living. They were just in Kremenchuk visiting, and Alex recognized him. He had been his teacher. Of course, Alex is a professor now at Richmond University in Richmond, Virginia, but he had been his teacher in school 10 when he was a young boy going to school. But that's Ronald Coleman. Now he's just 82, and that's Alex. He's Jane's son. Speaks very good English and Ukrainian, and he was a real help to us. This is they have I mentioned the Saturday afternoon Bible study. The man in the green shirt back there, you can see it. That's Nikolai. He was one of the early Christians, and he has through the years has helped us a lot. He would come get us at the airport and bring us to Kremenchuk, which is about a 3-hour drive each way. But and he has a daughter that lives in California. She was able to get in one of the universities of California, I'm not sure which, but she was able to get there for school, and she met and married an American, and but he had not been able to visit her in a couple of years, not just the virus thing, but that he had a stroke. I noticed that he was walking, sort of limping a little bit, but Nikolai had a stroke, but he was one of our, and a couple of ladies there, they've been there quite a number of years. That's Slava, they were just so nice to us, Everett. You wonder, they've always been nice to us, but this time they just seemed so grateful that we'd come. Of course, we didn't get to go at all of last year. Hadn't been there since November of 19, and so they were just really grateful. Here's a picture from the church. This is the city of Creamachug. This is the hill the church is on, the church building, and now this is a museum. I skipped a little faster than a minute or two there, but I guess I deleted some of those pictures. But this is a museum. They've just remodeled it and opened it up, and I'm not going to tell you what that creature is. It looks like he's standing on his head, but the picture just got. That's some kind of a little creature that Alex had found, caught somewhere, and of course, when I started going, there's a lot of the ladies needed they needed money, and of course they still do, but they had crystal that they wanted to sell, and of course obviously if I was going to bring a souvenir home, I would buy some crystal from them. And Faye got used to me bringing crystal, and when I come back, she expected me to have some crystal. Here Jane is shopping. She's picking picking out the best crystal she can find with the best deals. Oh, by the way, this is a restaurant that we would spend Ron and I would spend our day preparing for our lesson, but we'd take a break and go have some tea and some low-calorie sweets, of course. But this is one of those pictures, and that was upstairs. I don't know who. I guess Alex took that picture of me coming down those steps. I was careful not to fall down. But now this is this is our Saturday afternoon Bible study. They have us with questions, and Slava, of course, Slava. I think I have a picture of some of the work he did around the building many years ago. I mentioned to Tony about that they have a place. They were allowed. They lived in apartments, but they would let them have a little piece of land, and not as big as our lot behind us, so that they could grow their vegetables. They call it the dasha, and they would have a building they would build there so they could stay maybe over the weekend while they were working at the dasha, and it was next to the river. And of course, we took some of the pictures of the river while we were near there. I'll get on by those boats, but they had a pretty sunset. I thought the first Monday we started the classes, and it was record heat. Salem, I really and our apartment didn't ever have. Everybody was having to have water heaters put in their apartments. They didn't have the big water heater, big places where they heated the water and pumped them. Everybody was having to have a water heater put in, and our teacher's apartment had not had the water heater, but Slava wanted us to have hot water, so he got us another apartment. I would rather had not had the hot water, but as we were having the class, a storm. It's very unusual for them to have a storm. They're inland, so they in the level land. There's not a lot of hilly land, so they don't have a lot of storms. But the two or three of the ladies looking at that lightning and Randy, they got uneasy, but it didn't last long. But the sun come out after that. Some of the buildings that they're building now. This is the pictures that I took in one of the services, and of course, again, each of the Sundays after church, they had us come to the restaurant. They're rebuilding this bridge. There was a congregation that met. John Crump bought a building for them years ago. They had to go over this bridge, but while we were there, they were rebuilding that bridge, and it's very limited on who could go across and how many people could go across there at once. This is Alex was taking me to get my test. They had to have the COVID test to get on that plane to come home. I had to have it to get on the plane to go. But here is Alex and Ronald had to have his the next day. He had his on I had mine on Saturday and he had his on Sunday. But that's what Alex took our picture there. Now here's a lady that Jane, she had some crystals she wanted me to look at, so she had us to have some tea and cake while we were there in her apartment. Jane told me she's our neighbor. She says she's my neighbor, and I didn't know she was talking about after Dasha. They lived in different apartments in the city, but her house was across the street, or her area was across the street from Jane's out at Dasha. That Alex just tickled. They had worked on the park. Now this park is right along Lennon Street. They took Lenin's statue down after 2014. I often thought, why in the world did they leave that statue up there as long as they did? But when Russia invaded in 2014, they took that statue down. But this is along the street. They fixed that to light up at night, but it was beautiful. I've got some scenes that had different colors, that changed colors. So, but I've got some scenes in the park. Yeah, this is the Dasha. I'm going from one place to the other, but this is They have a little building that they used to live in while they were out working, and of course going to the. I decided to relax. I didn't have my recliner, so now that's an old one. But and some of the old stuff. But Jane has had it fixed up really nice. Of course, it's small. There's one room, and there's one room up above it. But she's gonna be showing here in a little while some of that old antique stuff that her grandmother had. She tell us about what her grandmother. And now, Tony, this is what I was talking about. How we used to cook that meat, how to roast it. Well, Peter and Slava had fixed this, and they was bringing it to us. We was having lunch on Saturday out there, and of course before we went back to the end of the city for the Bible study. But here, this is Slava that's bringing, and I think I know I've told y'all before that Slava lost his wife about 3 years ago, and I've got another illustration about this too in a few minutes, but she had heart problems for quite some time, and I didn't realize the last trip I was there, they said she'd been in the hospital, she'd had a heart attack. But she had an appointment in Kiev. That was where they do surgery and put in stents and things like that. Well, she died before they got to her. She had a heart attack and died before they got to her. But that was about 3 years ago. And well, here we're back at the church building again. I don't know if that picture's and they took a lot of pictures while we were eating too, at that restaurant. Now, this fellow here in the red shirt, he's been coming over there for. Well, he started coming not long after we started the school. His name is Doug Berry. He's out in Oklahoma. He was coming by just really. We came out for Slava to pick us up to take us to. He would come to the apartment because our apartment we stayed in this year was a couple of miles from the from the church building. He would come and get us, and he had come to get us as we come out. Here he was coming by, but he's lives in Oklahoma, and well, it's really amazing what they do. Those are, it's not they're Orthodox. The Catholics, of course, build tremendous church buildings, and of course it's nice to have a church building. I'm not criticizing pardon, building a nice church building, but they really go out. That's an Orthodox church, and this was at the museum, and they had just opened it up. Here's a picture. I didn't get as good a clearer picture as I wanted to there, but that's some artwork that they had done. I don't know how long ago, but the first time that I went to Kremenchug in 1992, we walked by here, and I remember that thing. It's really nice work. People did made a lot of effort. This was school 10. Of course, Jane has been a teacher. She's teaching part-time now, but they were closed. We were walking by, we had been shopping Brother Barry for some crystal. But the elderly ladies here, and you got to appreciate the effort they make to see them when they're coming, and sometimes they walk quite a distance to get to church to worship and to come to study. But they were. It makes you feel good. They're just so glad to see you. I know as we were finishing our Saturday evening study, the last Saturday we were there, we told them that we appreciated how they treated us. They'd been very nice to us, and Peter said, "Well, this 2 weeks just seems like one day." But they were glad, of course. They were glad that we were able to come, and of course they been going for many years, used to us coming several times a year. That they had missed us. Let me move on. And of course, a lot of stories to tell. A lot of these that very. Now I took this picture. It's really, you see that kind of spraying there, so you walk in and cool off, you get hot. Children were playing around in there, but they were selling Obama burgers. And we met a couple of Mormons in the park. Ron and I went to walk and get a little exercise. And we met a couple of Mormons that had been. One fellow said he'd been there 2 years, but he came on. We come back by. He was eating an Obama burger. But, I didn't eat an Obama burger. But now here is the church building. This is on Sunday morning, and that Slava used to work at that building. His fence. Let me see if I get a better picture. Yeah, Slava built the fence. They used to would come up and park. People come up sometimes while you're in service, park right in front of the door so that you could hardly get out. But so Slava built that fence, and that was the profession he was in. He worked with metal, and you know, we talk about getting through communism, but it doesn't get through it easy, because somehow or another, some of the people in his business, some of the government officials started coming and checking his work and charging him, you hear $200 or $300, but that's a lot of money for them. But he had to close it and go out of town to start a business working with trailers. But it's better than it was, but still it'd be a terrible place to have to live. Now, this is the park in those little doves. Some of those children were feeding them there, and there's plenty of them around when you get into the Ukraine. Most every city in Ukraine I've been in, there's been a lot of doves. Now, here's one I want to tell you about. This is Irene. She speaks just perfect English. She was a teacher she's a trained helicopter pilot for 44 years. In fact, one year I was there and I heard some fellows speaking like it was from Alabama walking in front of me. And there's three of them, and I was going from my apartment that in, and I said, "You fellows sound like you're from the South." And they were from Alabama, and one of them from Tennessee. But I asked, "Well, you know Irene?" "Oh, yes." Yeah, she was one of the early Christians, and it was a real big help to us. And we were walking through the park, Ronald and I, it's really ironic how things work out. I asked Ronald, I said, "Have you seen Irene lately?" And I said, "Well, it's been probably a couple of years." About 10 seconds later, she said, "Well, how are y'all doing?" She had got out to walk in the park, but she said she was diagnosed about 3 or 4 years ago now with 2 blockages in her, and they gave her 5 prescriptions. They didn't take her and do a stent, put a stent in, but she was just terrified. She'd listen to the news, and I'm not trying to make light of the virus, okay? But she was terrified. She was just convinced that if she got out and got that virus, she'd die. And of course, but she didn't walk very far. She was a couple of blocks from her apartment where she lived when we met her. But she was a real help to the church in the early years of the church. And that's Ronald. He's teaching his class on one of the evenings that I took some pictures there. Pictures of Dasha. That's the steps going up to Jane's Dasha. Here is the places where they have to raise their vegetables, and they have one room, and then they built another one over it. They let them have an apartment. This goes back to the communist era. They let them have an apartment in the city, but then they would let them have a dasha out, a small piece of ground out of the city to raise their garden. That's Nikolai that I mentioned a while ago. We were having Peter waving at us there, and Jane is showing her antiques. That's just explains to Ronald how that her grandma used these tools when she was growing up, and that old I'm not sure how you do that, Barry, but they say take threads there and make cloth with that. Spinning wheel they call it, I think, and she had a lot of that old stuff that she was showing us. By the way, do you ever churn any milk? That's her grandma's churn that Jane has there. And she's having Ronald get a little exercise and old stuff that's been made many years ago in the Ukraine, and that's not too old. Tony sent that to them about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. We'd like to have some gold trays for the Lord's Supper, and Tony sent those, and I thought, well, I'll take a picture and let him see that they're using those. But this was the service closing here, and as we were finishing that last Sunday service. But we'll just let that stay up there for the time being. But let's remember that from Psalms 1, God's looking for the righteous. God is challenging us to live in such a way that at the dasha, the feed where that's feeding us, I can remember when I was a little boy, we sort of ate like that. But the difference now, everybody has those cell phones, and you still get a hold of you, even though we are out there in the country eating some roasted food. But now, let's remember, we remember the sacrifices Jesus made for us. Let's remember why he made that sacrifice. He gave we talk about the Great Commission, and it is certainly great because it's about our soul. When Jesus said, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, and he that believeth not shall be condemned." It's a great message, and I was so grateful that they were thanking us that we'd come, that we'd had the opportunity, and that we had, and they were too. They were doing a lot of study. I mean, some of them is studying a great deal to understand God's will for them. That's their desire. That's what they want. But if you haven't become a Christian, if you haven't taken advantage of that blood that Jesus said on Calvary, we hope you'll think about it. The Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 6 described it as being raised to walk in newness of life. That's when you have been buried in baptism and raised to walk in newness of life. It's a great blessing that we have the opportunity to accept. If you haven't done that, we'll hope you'll think about it. If you're a Christian here this morning that we can help in some way, won't you come and let us know while we stand and sing?
Would you be free from your burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood. There's wonder.